Um, we are on today again. We're keeping up with COVID locally, and I probably need to add vaccines to that too, because we look like we have moved into a place where they're becoming more readily available. I'm joined by David Kent, CEO at Piedmont Newton, and Dr. Norris Little, CMO at Piedmont Newton. And I thank you guys for doing with that, joining us every other week to give us information right here at home in Newton County. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David to give us a quick update about what things are looking like here in Newton County at Piedmont Newton.
Well, thanks, Debbie. As always, great to be with you and talking to the chamber audience. Happy to be here and sort of battling this COVID pandemic alongside everyone else in our community. Good news right now, from a big picture standpoint, is the vaccine incidence rate has dwindled quite a bit. I just looked at our trend from the very beginning of positivity here at the hospital, and our overall positivity is as low as it has been in about 5 or 6 months. The last time we had this few COVID patients was in September and October of last year, which was quite a dip between two peaks. From the summer to the fall. So, we're really looking in good shape. Of course, we're still battling COVID. We still have COVID patients. It is still a deadly disease. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that it looks like the rate of spread has gone down and the overall volume of the disease in our community is relatively low. And I really attribute that to a couple of factors. One, I do think, we are starting to see the vaccine take effect. We're seeing less people in nursing homes getting COVID, and they're seeing less of those folks in our hospital. I also think we haven't had any major national holidays that are natural gathering points for families. It's going to be interesting to see as people go on spring break and travel and get together, if we see another wave sort of in April and May. But I don't think there's been a lot of congregating compared to what we saw over Thanksgiving and certainly the December and January holidays. So I think both of the things that those factors, the vaccines as well as not getting together, I think has really played a role in the decline in overall cases that we have. And now it's really kind of a race between how quickly can we get the rest of the population vaccinated versus the rate of spread and what's going to happen with these new variants. So far, good news is it looks like our ability to vaccine has outpaced the spread of new variants, which is good. We need to see that continue. And more good news around the supply front. I read today that Mississippi is the second state that has opened up COVID vaccine eligibility to anyone over the age of 16, I believe it was. And so that tells you that they're getting vaccine and that they're starting to stand up places where people can get those shots. And so I expect Georgia to follow suit. Right now, I think we're at anyone over 55 with underlying health conditions can get the vaccine. I would expect as we get more allocation from the federal government, that criteria will loosen even further, and we can get more and more of our citizens vaccinated. So that's all good. I know that Johnson & Johnson has received FDA provisional approval for its vaccine, and I'll let Dr. Little talk about that. But that could be a potential game changer because it's a one-shot dose, and it which of course cuts down at least half of the logistics associated with getting fully vaccinated with COVID. So I don't know yet exactly when we're going to get our allocation of Johnson & Johnson, but I expect it to be relatively soon. So with that, I'll let Dr. Little talk a little bit more about what this means in terms of the expanded criteria for citizens, talk a little bit about maybe what you all as businesses should be thinking about as the vaccine becomes more available. We know from experience that there's still a lot of misperceptions out there with respect to what the vaccine is and isn't, and what its potential effects on all of us could or might be. And I want to make sure we continue to beat the drum of fact-based information and education. And so with that, I would kick it over to my colleague and friend, Dr. Little, to talk a little bit more about the vaccine and what you as a business can specifically start thinking about with respect to getting your workforce vaccinated.
Great, thanks, Dave. First, I just want to reemphasize that, although our COVID numbers are down, we continue to see, patients that are severely ill with this disease, and in younger groups than, for example, we saw, 9 months ago or July of last year. So I need to emphasize that, we're still seeing deaths from COVID, the severe illness related to COVID, and that's part of the message behind the need to get vaccinated. And that some of these people are not, people with chronic medical conditions. They are people that are healthy and 40 years old, and that's the problem with this illness, is that even though many people have very mild disease, there are people that will get severe disease, and right now we don't have a way to identify who those people are, and the answer to that is to achieve enough immunity within the community that decreases the spread of the disease from person to person. So the vaccines are really the answer to that issue. Now, again, we have the two still, the Pfizer and Moderna, which are the 2-shot mRNA vaccines. Just want to reiterate that we've had very good success within Piedmont. We've administered those vaccines to thousands and thousands of our employees, as well as community members that have met criteria. With those vaccines, sometimes with the second dose, people have a day or two of body aches or low-grade fevers, and then that goes away, and then they tend to be fine. We have not seen any severe life-threatening type reactions, at least within the Piedmont system, with the administration of these vaccines. I know that if you read the news, you're going to see occasional reports of adverse consequences, but when you're giving vaccines to 50 million people out in our country, sometimes adverse things happen whether they get the vaccine or not, and there's no evidence to date that the vaccine is causing any kind of severe life-threatening reactions other than what we already identified as the allergic type reactions, which we know fairly quickly. So we continue to recommend vaccination for 2 reasons. One is to protect yourself for the possibility of getting severe COVID and the long-term consequences or even life-threatening consequences that come with that. And secondly, I have conversations with people that they're waiting to see what the long-term safety of the vaccine is. And the concern I have around that, and some of the messaging that you may have, is we already know what the long-term and short-term effects of COVID are, and they can be very severe. And we know that people that are in high-risk categories, that's a higher risk, but it also happens to people that don't have risk factors. And right now with the vaccine, we just aren't seeing, long-term side effects or issues. The other concern is just that people maybe have the idea that they're going to not get COVID. They're kind of playing the odds, and I'm going to tell you that everybody's either going to get vaccinated or they're going to get COVID. It's not, maybe I'll avoid it or maybe I won't get it. I don't think there's a way that eventually, if you're out in the community, if you're, going to work, unless you're just going to totally isolate yourself, permanently, that you can avoid getting the disease. So I think that's a kind of a misconception people have, that they may not get COVID. I think everybody is going to get one or the other. And the third thing is related to the fact that, maybe you won't get severe COVID, but you may put someone that you care about at risk for getting severe COVID. So a parent or a relative or a friend. And so, part of the reason, of course, for getting COVID, getting the vaccine, is just that I'm not just protecting myself, but I'm protecting those people that I care about, and other community members from potentially getting a disease that could be life-threatening to them. The other issue David mentioned is the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is a one-dose vaccination. And I have concerns because people will look at the vaccines and go, well, the Pfizer and the Moderna are 95 or 94 or 95% effective in preventing COVID. And just to be frank, they're probably not quite that good. They're good, but they're, those were all came out of the preliminary studies. And the Johnson & Johnson is, I think, 67 or 70% effective in preventing COVID. The real question is, how effective are these vaccines at preventing severe COVID? And most of them, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and even the Johnson & Johnson are close to 100% effective in preventing severe COVID. And that's really the goal. The goal is to prevent people from getting, the severe life-threatening disease. So I think for many people, the Johnson & Johnson one dose vaccination will be a very viable option. And I don't think they need to look at it as sort of a second-class vaccine, because it also is extremely effective in preventing individuals from getting severe COVID. So, and again, low risk of long-term side effects. So we're hoping that we'll see availability of that vaccine as an added option in our communities very soon. And so we think these are great options. We certainly want to continue to promote that, and kind of dispel any concerns. I guess the one other concern I've read about is related to infertility with the vaccines, and there really is no evidence of that. We've certainly talked to our OBGYN physicians in the community. They're not concerned about that. They have gotten vaccinated. They recommend their patients get vaccinated. So the issue of infertility is really not something that's been shown to be true in any of the clinical trials or studies that have come out.
Great. Thank you for that information to both of you. One quick question. Is there any studies, or I'm sure there's been studies, but any evidence yet as to how long the vaccine will stay active once it's been taken?
I really don't think we have that data yet. And it's probably several months away. But I think the other question I would answer around that is related to these new variants that people are reading about. There is evidence that the vaccine currently also helps prevent severe COVID with the variants. So that's important. And so the current vaccines now, if this disease behaves like, for example, influenza, we may need to be getting new vaccines for COVID like we do for influenza to prevent severe COVID, in a year or 2 years, whatever the time frame might be. I just don't think we know the answer to those questions about how long your immunity lasts if you have had COVID, or how long your immunity lasts if you get the vaccine. I think those are still unknown at present.
Okay. Okay, good information. Well, I do want to announce we do have are going to be joining you guys at Piedmont Newton on April the 7th for our chamber coffee call in the Knox Center at the Piedmont Park. We had hoped to do this in January, and numbers were still high, and we're excited to do this. I think it's going to be good for some of our members to come in. We are having to cap that, but we will stream it live too. And Community Relation Director Andrea Lane also is hosting groups that would like to come through the hospital, and kind of Dr. Norris, Dr. Little takes them on a tour. David will join them at the end and just kind of have a round table about what's going on at the hospital here locally and in the community, and how it may relate to your business or organization. So if you're interested in that and watching this, you can reach out to Andrea Lane if you have her contact, or reach out to me at the chamber, and I can pass you that contact. But that's been a great resource. I've heard from several businesses and community members. So thank y'all for doing that. So again,
thank you, Debbie. Appreciate the plug. We look forward to seeing some of you on April the 7th and buying coffee and telling you a little bit about what's going on here. We've got a lot of cool stuff going on beyond just the COVID stuff. We've revamped our emergency department. We've got no wait. We are moving patients through. We're getting them taken care of and on their way home if that's what they need, or into the hospital if that's what they need. We've got a bunch of cool things happening. So come by and hear our talk, and look forward to having you.
Yes, and I'm excited about some of that good coffee. I love the coffee at Piedmont Park, so I have missed that, and the gift shop. So I might sneak over there while I'm there. Great. Anyway, thank you guys again. I can't say thank you enough for the support you've given us, and just helped us keep on keeping on here in Newton County. So if anybody watching has a question, please drop it in the box below the YouTube video, and we'll see you guys back in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
Thank you.